But I would say throughout the last 5 years, we've easily impacted or had an impact on well over 6,000 or 7,000 first responders.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. It's time for another episode of the Difference Makers podcast, where I, your host, Dr. Jim Hoven, are talking to amazing people every week, learning their stories, sharing them with you, and hoping that it helps make a difference in your life too. Today, absolutely no exception. Today, we're meeting with someone and going to hear the story of an incredible organization that is making a difference in the lives of the very people that are protecting us, our first responders. So today we're going to talk to basically someone whose whole life mission is to push the boundaries of mental health, wellness, and safety for first responders. So without further ado, I want to introduce to you the head of Revital and Mr. Jordan Law. Jordan, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Jim. Appreciate you.
Dude, we have been waiting to do this for a minute, right? You've been connected with Dr. Ramos for a long time. We are so excited to be part of what you guys' mission and vision is. We're a sponsor. We want to be part of that. And now with our partnership with the Broncos, we decided to kick it up a notch where actually what we're doing is for every flag, and if you're watching the Broncos in stadium, you'll be able to see this. If you're at home, you won't be able to see this if you're watching on TV. But for every Denver Broncos game, when there's a flag that gets thrown, we're making a donation to Revital so that we can help support what they do. Now you're probably saying, what does Revital do? We're going to get into that right now. And Jordan's going to tell us all about this amazing organization and the difference that it's making in the lives of our first responders. So Jordan, can you just share a little bit, first of all, about what Revital is and what it does in the community?
Yeah, absolutely. And love the connection. Been watching Ramos Law grow and grow and grow over the years, and told my wife from the very beginning, I'm like, we have got to partner with these guys, because I know Joe, I know you guys and your heart and your generosity. So we couldn't be more thankful to you guys for supporting our organization in a multitude of ways. But so Revital Colorado, long story short, I founded this organization February of 2020. I'm a former firefighter-paramedic with Adams County Fire Rescue for close to 10 years. And when I left the job, I had a lot of my buddies start reaching out for help. And I started to look at the resources that were truly out there, truly offered. And I'm not knocking this, but every one of them was a responsive care organization, right? And I was like, man, they're telling us all these statistics about divorce and suicide and alcoholism. Like, what are we doing to get ahead of it? And I started to look back throughout my career. And one area that I stopped prioritizing for myself because my work-life balance and family wasn't great, I stopped my outlets, the things that I love to do that really, truly brought me joy, besides obviously my family brings me the most joy. I stopped fly fishing. I stopped golfing as many times as I wanted to. I just didn't have the time to prioritize it. And so when we started this organization, I was like, how do we use those fun platforms to build deep relationships with the responder community, build trust, because trust actually is what is missing in the resource realm. But once we build trust, then we can get them connected with the professional support services that truly can make an impact on their lives, their mental health, whatever it might be. So what Revital does is we provide 18 to 22 outings per month, completely free of charge for first responders and their family members. Typically 5 to 10 people on an outing. Might take them out fly fishing, horseback riding, woodworking, clay shooting, hockey, whatever we can do. That stuff, like I just said, is the platform. Once we're there, we're building relationships. All of our outings are hosted by current or former responders. And then we do stuff for spouses. We do couples outings. We do family outings. Those tend to be a little bit larger. And then lastly, we do retreats. So on the retreat side of things, we build in some psychoeducation. We talk about stress injuries. We talk about stress management. And really, how do you have a long, healthy career without sacrificing yourself physically, mentally, spiritually, and emotionally? And how do you keep your relationships at the center?
And that's so important, because you and I were talking earlier, and our first responders, man, they're in a hazard zone right now, not only literally with what they do, but mentally, as a career. All these things are pointing to people having shorter careers, right, in first responders. And so what I'm hearing you say, Jordan, is that when people go through the program, when they find a connection, it can make them healthier, stronger, and help them be revitalized to go back to work, so that hopefully this thing they get better over time, and we are therefore as a community safer. Is that fair to say?
100%. I mean, that's in essence what we want to do day in and day out with these outings. And then what happens is those individuals that come to our outings and need more, right? As I said before, they've found that we're trusted. We also then have a huge list of vetted resources that are out there for them. And we can make those connections, whether it's brain code centers through neurofeedback, code 4 counseling, relationship help, spiritual help through Grace Church or other church organizations. So they know they can come to us throughout their career, throughout their lives. And really our message to them is get ahead of this, because it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when something happens to you. It may not be on the job. It may be a loss of a loved one. It may be a financial crisis. It may be something where we've had to connect them with Ramos Law attorneys for what they're going through. And you don't know, but you want to be ahead of it.
So important. And something just hit my brain. I don't know what the percentage is of male versus female first responders, and it probably changes whether you're in paramedic versus firefighter versus whatever. Yeah. And so all of these different places, because like you mentioned, as we were talking earlier too, dispatch is kind of the left out or the forgotten branch of first responders. For sure. Do you notice a significant participation change between males and females based on the type of activity? So we got a lot of outdoor stuff. Maybe more females gravitate towards the horseback riding, more males to the fly fishing, more females to the hockey. I don't know. Do you see that in what you do?
Really when I started this, I thought that's how it was going to be. And so then we started creating some of the outings that we thought might be female specific. And the feedback was, but we want to do that. We want to fly fish. We want to ride horse. We want to shoot guns. I think that you find in the responder world is an eclectic range of people that have all different types of interests and hobbies, and they're willing to do whatever. We do have certain outings that are obviously much more sought after, whether male or female. That's obviously your fly fishing, your horseback riding. I would say from the female side of things, they love the paddle boarding when they go out and do paddle boarding. So it really just depends on what we're doing.
And when these people get together, I love what you said earlier, and I actually didn't catch it when we were talking before we went on air, this business of building trust. Because you always think right now, especially in law enforcement side, we're trying to reconnect the trust of the people, of the communities with the providers, right, with our law enforcement, and build that trust. But what I just heard you say that was so brilliant is if you want people to really share their hearts, they have to feel safe and they have to build trust. So what I think I'm getting is that when you go on one of these events, these people will make a connection to where I'm assuming with the leader and each other, where they start sharing their story. And through that, now all of a sudden you can say, look, bro or sis, I got you. And what you're saying, here's where you can go. If this is what you need, it allows you to then make those referrals for those deeper conversations or deeper activities that need to be had. Is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think throughout what I saw in my career was guys and gals didn't share what was really going on with them, not because they didn't want to, but because they didn't know who to trust. And they had been burned once or twice, or they had tried a clinician who maybe wasn't culturally competent to what the responders go through. What we find is that when they come on our outings, all of our hosts are current or former responders. And our hosts are the people that that's what we call them when they're leading the outing. So they're the ones that choose the activity, set it up, and then we fund it through our organization. But we've trained these hosts on how to share their story, because in order to build trust, you've got to be vulnerable and transparent. And our hosts are amazing about that, whether it's at lunch or whether it's in the middle of an activity. And what you find is a guy or a gal will come up and be like, man, my story relates to yours. I'm struggling with my spouse right now. Oh, really? Revital has this resource for you. Or, man, I don't know if I can do this job anymore. Hey, man, I've been there. Let's talk about it. And that's that trust component and that relatability component that we want to have.
And I know that goes all the way up and down the ladder. For example, my wife and I, we were sharing this earlier, we're part of a group called COPS, the Concerns of Police Survivors.
Amazing.
And that group is specifically catering to the families of people who have lost a loved one in the line of service, right? Yeah. And so working with those groups, it was interesting because they are in it for the long term. They support these people long term, just like what you guys do, but it's after a loss. And so what I see just really unique is that you're trying to get, as you mentioned, ahead of it, so that people can maintain their mental health, not after, or if they go through something like that, God forbid they lose a coworker, a sister, a brother, a wife, a husband, that they're better equipped through that, because they see so much every day, right? They see the worst of the worst, the most painful of the painful every day. And if it happens on the inside, they need to be equipped with the things that you guys go. That's why I love that it's not just for the wounded warrior kind of thing. Exactly. It's for the people to remain strong and vibrant and healthy. That's what excites me so much.
Well, the problem is once you, and there's a stress continuum that we teach on that has been utilized by the military for 50, 60 years, but it's basically 4 colors, green, yellow, orange, red, has all these different signs and symptoms. But red being kind of you're depleted, you're at your lowest point. When folks get to the red, they don't have the capacity to sort through resources, figure out exactly what they need. It's too late, right? And unless they're willing to go to somebody to do that for them, unfortunately, that's when we lose them to suicide, or they lose their career, or something bad happens. And so we want to get ahead of it in the sense of, hey, while you have the capacity, while you have even if you think you're great, your mental health is great, your wellness is great, your relationships are great, still understand that trauma hits different, and trauma hits everybody at different points, right? And that's really what we want to get ahead of is giving them the resources early and often.
And when you guys are talking with your folks, there's no criteria on how long they've been in law enforcement or firefighting or dispatching or whatever. It's just, if you want to do this, join our app and then get involved and get engaged. When someone comes in, do you guys by chance score them on the front side to see if they're green, yellow, orange, or red, so that they're like, hey, I'm doing pretty good, I want to stay good, or oh crap, I'm one big issue away from a problem?
Yeah, well, great question. So to answer the first one, there's no, as long as you are a sworn officer, firefighter, whatever it is, it doesn't matter if you've been on 1 day or 50 years, right? You can come on our stuff. And honestly, when we teach at academies, we tell them, don't wait. Jump in as soon as you can. That way you get ahead of it. Second question, the way that we score them isn't with our continuum. Excuse me, we actually use something that we use out on the streets, which is a kind of a triage guide, and it's a color-coded thing. It's just 3 colors. And when they sign up for an outing on our app, they get what's called a pre-trip survey. And that survey will ask them some questions. Hey, how's your sleep? Green, orange, red. How's your mental health? Green, orange, red. How's your relationships? We want to know where they stand prior to coming in. And then on the backside, they get a questionnaire that also asks, where are you now? And what other resources can we offer you? And so they know that they're going to get that each and every time they come on an outing. Plus it helps us for our data on the backside for grants and funding and whatnot.
And so when they're going through that, do you find that it takes a minute to build the trust of them answering right, especially on emotional, social connection, all that kind of stuff? Because the environment, I imagine, is a lot like military, where they don't want to show weakness or vulnerability on some side, because that's not what they do every day. They have to be the strong ones. They have to be the saviors, right? They have to be the good guys. And number 2, they worry about, what if this gets out to the wrong person? Could it affect my career? So is there still the same, you have that same inertia you got to get over?
I would say yes. Will we ever know the answer to that question? I don't know, because we can't tell whether people are being honest or not on those forms. But I can tell you that more people than I thought actually answer the forms what I would call honestly, because we see orange or we see red, and we keep it very private. We have one person that reviews that, and then she makes sure that if we need to know something going into an event, we let our hosts know if there's any red flags, because we have to do it for safety too, right? You think of the Chris Kyle situation. That's all my wife ever thought about when I started taking guys out the first couple times. So we want to make sure that it's safe, not only for the responder, but for our hosts. But then on the backside, we want to know what impact did we have on them and what can we do better, and how often can we follow up if we need to.
And there's a reason why this in particular cause inspired you. And you mentioned earlier that when you got out of firefighting, your buddies they were reaching out to you. Was it just that, or was there something else that burned that fire to say, this is what I want to commit my life to?
Yeah, honestly, I think I didn't realize it, like I said, while I was there. But when I first started in the job, it was, don't bleed this stuff on your spouse. Let's go drink it away at 7 o'clock in the morning when we get off shift. And a lot of the guys came to my wedding with red Solo cups yelling, have fun with your practice wife. And that was kind of the culture at the time. And so when we would run, I just had a lot of kid calls throughout my career. And my wife would let me know, like, hey, you're irritable. You're less present. You're emotionless. I'd be like, no, I'm fine. Like, I'm doing a great job at work and I'm building a business on the side. I thought things were good. Meanwhile, there was no communication between the two of us. I was struggling to interact with my kids in certain capacities because of a few of the kid calls that I had. And then in 2016-ish, we lost an officer in the line of duty in Adams County. And then a couple months later, I ran a call in the middle of the night and showed up to find my aunt on a scene dead, and I had to pronounce my aunt. And I wrapped my arms around my cousin, and I couldn't shed a tear. And then at the funeral, my wife was nudging me. She's like, aren't you sad? I'm like, I'm sad, but I didn't feel it, right?
Yes.
I always say in the responder world, we build a wall between our head and our heart because we got to run calls with our head. But we have to learn how to navigate that wall emotionally with our family and our friends. I did not do that well, and I didn't fully realize it until I left, right? When I left, emotions started coming back, and I did some work. I did some EMDR therapy. I did some neurofeedback. And so it took some time because I really couldn't sleep. Sleep deprivation was the biggest thing for me. I didn't sleep while I was on shift. I didn't sleep after shift, and that continued 8 months after I left. But once I had the ability to step back and start to see some of the light come back in my own life, my emotions with my kids, with my wife, I was like, wow, that was a problem. I didn't realize it, and I wasn't willing to listen to her. And so my hope is by being vulnerable and transparent and starting this organization, we can save lives, we can save marriages, we can save a lot of pain that a lot of us that are on this side helping and do the work have been through and are willing to share our story. So that's really what brought this full circle. And to be honest with you, I'm a person of faith, and so my faith was a huge component because I had lost some of that just connection and relationship with the Lord throughout my responder career, and I want to help people find purpose and identity outside of their job.
That's so amazing, and I know the impact that you've had. I mean, you've shared stories with me, with us. I've seen it in some of the things that I was just even learning from your website. How many people have you guys helped? I mean, I know this thing's been going now, about 5 years.
Yeah.
In that half a decade, I mean, the growth has been amazing, remarkable. Support from businesses, amazing, remarkable. What's the impact so that someone watching or listening right now would be like, holy crap, like they're really doing some good on the people that are taking care of us?
Yeah. Yeah, and as I told you earlier, I have to be better at being bold because I try to remain very humble in this, and I don't ever want it to come across as I. But I would say throughout the last 5 years, we've easily impacted or had an impact on well over 6,000 or 7,000 first responders. We have 4,000 on our app currently, but we've done trainings and teachings at over 100 agencies. Chief Nick Metz and myself. Nick Metz is the founder of the It's a Calling Foundation. We run a wellness conference each and every year, bring speakers in from all over the country. We have over 350 people attend that. So when you start to add up the impact of just speaking engagements at conferences and whatnot, I think it's safe to say over 6,000 or 7,000, and maybe even a lot higher.
And that's just the beginning, because the butterfly effect ripples out not to just those people, but like you said earlier, to their families, to their friends, to their relationships in their communities, all that kind of thing. We were talking about earlier about a friend of mine named John Marks who wrote this book called Armor Yourself. Yeah. And as I read through that book, it reminded me so much of what you've shared with us today and the importance of these people who you called it the wall, right? That build the wall from here up. Yeah. In the scientific community, or especially the psychological community, compassion fatigue is a thing, 100%. Right? A real thing. And I know that I talk to our attorneys here a lot about it. In fact, one of our very early podcast episodes we did with a clinical psychologist, and he treats compassion fatigue. His son was actually an attorney here before he moved to another state. And I learned so much about that because providers, first responders, attorneys, they're hearing these stories, and it starts to make it so that, like you say, your heart gets just a little bit of callus on it. It's still, it's like the Grinch kind of, where it needs to grow again because it's in protection mode. And so with every direction that you guys are taking in the future, I just want to say that it's beautiful to see that someone is thinking about that now. And I know that you have to have gotten notes, letters from people who have, whether it's someone, you might have changed their life or prevented them from committing suicide from one event, but if they're into the community, I can't imagine you don't hear a lot of positive feedback.
We do, and oftentimes my wife reminds me, because there's the stress of, and when and you guys know this better than me, but when you're chasing a dream and you're pursuing your version of what you call success, which for us is just impacting the lives of responders positively and their families, you don't take time to reflect on all of the positives that have happened because you're constantly focused on what's next. And so my wife will have to remind me from time to time when we do get a letter or an email or a note in the mail, hey, like this person's life was saved because of this. So let all that other stress of fundraising or whatever it might be go to the wayside and just know that this is working. And and if it impacts one person, it's worth it. But we've had several of those stories. And we've had people actually share at fundraising events how our organization has saved their life. So that's pretty incredible.
So incredible. I'm interested in this. You know how you see a lot of things in the media where you have police and firefighters in particular that they like to have friendly competitions or sometimes maybe not so friendly. I don't know, but they have them box each other and they do all these things. When they get together, and again, now we've got paramedics and we've got our dispatchers. When they get together, I imagine if they're being vulnerable, there might be a little bit of that stuff, but then there becomes this respect for what portion each of those people play, from the person who takes that call, the dispatcher, to the person who arrives on scene first and the paramedic, and then the person who's protecting the scene and making sure that everything is safe with the other two. Like all that stuff, I imagine builds a deeper respect within the first responder community for each other.
It's so funny because you hit the nail on the head. There is a lot of banter back and forth amongst specifically fire and PD. And when we started this, I was like, how is that interaction going to go? Honestly, it opened my eyes to deepening that bond and that respect with law enforcement officers. Because one thing about healing is when you start to hear other people's perspective of similar situations, you start to understand, holy cow, number one, I'm not alone. And number two, I need to take my eyes off myself a little bit more and maybe put them in the shoes of this individual that might have been on the same scene, but had a totally different experience on that scene. And so it has been amazing to watch. I mean, I'll say when we do retreats, I get very nervous going into a retreat because you've got 8 people coming to a ranch that don't know each other. Some are fire, some are police, some are dispatch. You don't know how they're going to connect and if they're going to mesh. And I can say without fail, every single one of them has deepened that respect bond. And many of them, we had a story from one of our very first fly fishing trips. We had a firefighter and a police officer. They are still fishing together to this day, 5 years later.
Wow.
Incredible. I mean, it's the bond that was built was unique. And that's what we want to.
And when you have people go through the program, I can't imagine that many people are one and done, where they just go to one event. I imagine they start feeling that sense of trust, vulnerability. It's easy to be honest there. And then they make these connections under great times and all the resources that you provide. If they need something for themselves or their family, they're there. I'm interested to see how many of those folks that start in that pipeline end up becoming trip hosts / mentors or guides. Like they grow into, now they help someone.
A lot. And that's exactly the pipeline that we have to build in order to continue to grow and grow appropriately. I would say right now, at least 15 of those people have happened. So to where they've come through outings and had the impact and now they're hosting things. And a lot of them, they're probably even more, but they just don't have the time to actually host and volunteer. Right. But to your earlier point, it's funny. We actually have the opposite problem. We have people that come on so many outings that the people that are on the app that haven't gone on an outing don't get the chance to, just because they're not quick enough on the. And this is something that we're trying to work on, is how do we get it to where everybody can have a spot at the table, essentially.
Yes.
Because on our app, when we put an outing on the app and we actually publish it, it goes live on everybody's interface. And if your notifications are on, you're going to get that notification, and that's when you can join the outing right then and there. And it's limited to maybe 5, 6, 7, 8 people. So majority of our outings are full every single month with a wait list. And majority of folks, I would say, have been on 4, 5, 6, 7 outings before, and they love to keep coming back. And we truly believe it's not just for free fun, it's for the community aspect.
No doubt about it. And so that's something where you guys are growing. What else is the vision that you have for Revital moving forward? Where do you see this thing going?
Yeah, early on, our vision really was to own a ranch and have our own retreat facility. But over time, I realized that truly limits the impact of the responders that live in a different geographical location. And so now our goal number one is to work with every single responder agency in Colorado, first and foremost, right? We've been asked by other states, St. Louis, Texas, Seattle, San Diego, Oklahoma City, to start chapters in these states. But I really firmly want to help our own backyard before we go start expanding outside of that. But I think overall our goal really is to start chapters in other states, or find individuals in those states where we can help them kind of start their form of Revital there. That way we don't have to manage a chapter. It really just depends on the funding that comes in and the amount of help that we can get before we start expanding, too far and overwhelming ourselves more than we already are.
And I think, as kind of a final question for you, it leads to that. How can people help if they want to be part of supporting the community that supports them every single day? Is it through money? If so, where do they donate? How do they get a hold of you? Is it through can they donate time? Can they donate something in one of these different kinds of events? How can people help if this connects with their heart the way it's connected with yours?
Yeah, the first two ways obviously are first and foremost what we need the most, right? Funding is always right now. We have more funding going out the door than we know what to do with, because when and we had 3 deaths just this weekend. We had a police officer suicide. We had a off-duty firefighter die in an ATV accident yesterday, and we had a firefighter suicide. Whenever we get reach outs, we don't ever want to say no. And one part of our organization that I didn't mention is we have a benevolence fund, and we've had to continually increase that benevolence fund to help responders and their family members going through difficult times. This year, our benevolence budget is about $40,000. We blew through that in June, I believe. And so funding is always donations. You can go to our website, revitalcolorado.org, at donate. There's the donate page on there. You can do it through Colorado Gives, because Colorado Gives matches. And then in-kind donations are always hugely helpful. We actually have an individual who's looking at donating a inflatable raft to our organization that we can utilize to take trips. I would say from the get-go, most of the equipment that we use on our outings is either myself or our hosts. We haven't acquired a ton of it because, once again, we want to put that funding towards the responders. But over time, we'd love to equip our organization with different things, whether it's paddle boards, fishing equipment, waders. So any gear like that people you have at home just sitting around, laying around. Obviously, we don't want junk, and I don't want to fill a garage with junk, but if there's nice stuff that you're not utilizing, that's obviously a way that people can help as well. And then thirdly, from a volunteer time aspect, because of the relatability component of our outings and the intimacy component, those are led by current or former responders. But from the general public side of things, whenever we have large events, conferences, fundraisers, our Battle of the Badges, which is our Police vs. Fire hockey tournament, we do take volunteers for those different events. So you can look on our website for that and reach out to us via email if that's something you're interested in helping with.
I love it. Quickly on that note, best contact information for someone to reach out. What's the best website, best phone number, something if anybody's watching, if you're watching this and it's connected with your heart, please take action, do something, and make a difference. How would they do that? Best contact.
Yeah, so best contact for connecting with our organization is going to be www.revitalcolorado.org. Revitalcolorado.org. Email jlong@revitalcolorado.org. If you are a responder, because our app is only for responders and their family members, go to the App Store, download the app Revital Colorado, and connect with our organization. We'd love to meet you and have you come on our outings.
So here's my final question for you, Jordan. What is the biggest lesson that you've learned since you started this particular endeavor that has either affected your life the most, become the biggest part of your fabric of being, that has just made you say, wow, my life is different because of this organization through this lesson? Is there one thing that comes to mind?
I would say, and this, I think you guys can relate to this in a much bigger manner. No dreams are too big, right? Like I said, I had no clue, and never count yourself out, right? For me, I always thought I'm nobody, right? I'm not that important. People aren't going to want to hear my story. Anybody with a story can make an impact, and no dream is too big for that platform.
That is a great way to end. Did you guys hear that? No dream is too big. So put your dream on blast. Go make it happen. And if you can, please, if this touched your heartstrings at all, please support these guys. And we're doing it through the law firm. We're doing it through our partnership with the Broncos. We're so proud of the work they do and the things they do for us every day. So please get out and support. And if this made a difference in your life today, send it to someone. We'd appreciate you asking for notifications when our next episode is coming out, doing all these things. But most important, get out there, get involved, and go make a difference.